episode 16 of the Branding and Communications podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Grace Gregg, and I'm here with some of my team members today, Janet Rosh, Lindsay Hine, and Lucy Rosh. Welcome.
No relation. Okay, just kidding. Yes, Grace. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming. It's Monday today. Did everyone have a nice weekend?
Yeah.
Did anyone do anything exciting?
No, it was pretty chill.
Same here.
Just enjoying summer.
Every time I ask this question in the beginning of the podcast, I get a similar response, but I still try. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about our previous internship experiences in light of National Intern Day, that is this Thursday. So I guess we can just get started with my first question. If you guys could go through and talk about some memorable internships you've had through the years, that would be great.
Okay, I guess I can start since everyone's looking at me. I had some internships many moons ago, and since that time I've also coordinated the intern program for different organizations that I've worked for. So I've kind of had the perspective from the hiring and then also the intern end. When I was in college, it wasn't common for interns to be paid, and a lot of times people tried to get the credits instead. But I did have two really valuable internship experiences, and they were completely different. One was at a TV and radio station because I was a communications major, so it was a two-part internship where I worked on the radio side with radio editing, and it was for a news station, and then on the TV side, editing video. And so just getting to see the behind the scenes of how TV and radio stations work and the kinds of stories they cover, and how they approach putting packages together, that was really interesting. And then I had a second internship in Washington, D.C. at a congressman's office where I was on their communications team, which basically involved answering letters from constituents and researching topics and things like that, and then putting responses together for the letters that they would send in. So just that was a great experience, but living in Washington, D.C. for a semester with like 600 other interns through this program was really just a great life experience.
I have had a unpaid internship this past semester. I got 2 credits for it. It was through our English department in UW-Eau Claire. And then I'm currently the intern at Brannigan Communications, which is very fun. And I would say much more hands-on and much more exciting than my previous internship. But that was largely because my unpaid one was just for a small magazine that didn't have an actual location to go into. So it was kind of hard to get into like the work mode because I would just be, emailing back and forth with my supervisor pretty much. But yeah.
I've had a couple, most were based at Marquette, since that's where I go to school. So I was at the Office of Marketing and Communications for 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. And that was kind of my first internship experience. It was, excuse me, it was pretty relaxed. I did graphic design work there. It was a lot of edits to templates and kind of designing very small things based on the Marquette brand and stuff like that. But it was super beneficial because it helped me learn how an office functions and what a creative person might be doing in a communications department rather than like just some sort of design firm. So that one kind of taught me probably the most out of the ones that I've had so far. And then I, too, was a Washington, D.C. intern. Although I was not in a congressperson's office, I was at a public and government affairs office, and I was just brought on as a general unpaid intern and to do a lot of research and like write memos and stuff like that. But it kind of turned into a graphic design type internship. They were lacking in that department, like didn't have like a set design person. So I had mentioned in passing like, oh, like I'm interested, and they kind of jumped on that. So that's what I ended up doing there. It was really awesome and taught me a lot about the importance of interns in a company, like it can bring something new to the table and like help out in ways that you never thought you could.
Nice. And you're also here
And I am here now, yes.
as an intern as well.
Yep, graphic design.
Janet, did you encourage Lucy to go to DC?
Well, the opportunity kind of came about on its own, but I definitely did encourage her because it's just an exciting city to be in, and the weather's great too, which is a benefit in December and November when things are getting cold here. But yeah, I definitely encouraged her, and I think it worked out for her.
Nice. Well, during your time, all three of you, I guess, as an intern, was there anyone that you met during that time that maybe brought you to where you are today? Lucy, maybe not your mom bringing you here, but
Right. Well, she has played a large role. The person I guess who comes to mind would be my supervisor at the Office of Marketing Communications. She was one of the creative directors. She's kind of an older lady, and she's worked there for a very long time. So she knew it was happening. She knew the best way to teach me like how to do her job basically, and like she set me up with the programs. Like I had never used like InDesign at a professional level, like using the tools how they're supposed to be used. So like she kind of taught me the ropes on how to do that, and she would bring me to meetings and stuff. Like I just felt like she had a lot of confidence in me that I necessarily like didn't really have in myself. So under her tutelage, she kind of made me more confident and brought me to experiences that I probably would have shied away from if it wasn't from her.
I would say for me, at working at Brannigan, Lauren and even yourself, Grace, have been a huge help because you've both been interns who have been in my same position before, and you sat at my desk, so you know kind of how to show me the ropes, and I can come to you with any questions. But really anybody in the office I can come to with questions. So that's been really helpful, and just knowing that I can always ask if I need help or go to somebody and say like, hey, I think that maybe I could help in this area, something like that. So it's been just a really great environment.
As far as my internships, there isn't really one person who stands out as being a mentor, but I think it was kind of eye-opening to see how different personality styles work in an office, and seeing kind of the hierarchy of an organization, and just how people, get the work done, and how dedicated they are, and how passionate they are about the work that they do.
that is interesting. Working in the different offices too, I feel like it's nice. You get a sense of like culture, what maybe fits for you and what doesn't. It's not binding to a permanent job. So Janet, when I started here, you were running the internship program, and you mentioned you had done some maybe at previous jobs as well. Was there anything that you learned while you were an intern that you took to the programs that you've run?
I think as an internship coordinator, I looked at it in a little bit of a different way, where we knew after working with a few interns over the years, we kind of knew what level of expertise or maturity would be successful as an intern. So freshmen and sophomores, even though they might be super enthusiastic, they're not far enough into their major generally to really understand the job or the tasks or roles we want them to play. They just didn't have enough experience. So people who were juniors or seniors or even recent graduates were more valuable to our team. And in all the cases, the team that the interns came on to, it was a pretty small team. So having them be able to bring some skills that would help the team would be something that we'd look for. And also maturity level, I think is really important, and that plays into being a little bit older. But like Lucy said, knowing how to operate in an office environment. Literally, there have been interns who can't do the simple, tasks of being in a professional environment. Either showing up to work on time or, communicating about projects or things like that. And those people just, aren't successful. So having the soft skills and then also some skills that apply to the field is important starting out.
What are some things that you look for in interviews to see, to find those things and be able to tell that maybe they will or won't be mature enough?
I think getting them to talk about the either previous internships or other work that they've done in their major or how they've gotten involved in other organizations on campus, some extracurriculars if they are in sorority or another organization where they were in a leadership role or something like that. They definitely know what it takes, to be accountable for the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. How did you guys prepare for some of your internship experiences, or interviews, I mean?
Well, for my internship that was just for credit through my university, since it was through the English department, my minor is creative writing, so that was kind of how I heard about it. But there was we'd had to attend a lot of sessions where we would hear from past interns about different internships or internship positions that they had held. And then we also had to take a class alongside the internship. So I think that class actually helped a lot because it wasn't so much of a professor just lecturing at you. It was like a group setting where we could all talk about the things we had done that week and kind of how we learned through what we had done to kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And maybe it was like to feel supported by other interns who were kind of going through a similar thing. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really helpful to do, and that was kind of a good way to go about doing an internship through a department at the university.
I think when you're not the only intern in an office, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Just because you can ask the other person or other people questions, and you don't have to feel stupid to go to your supervisor and say, I don't know how to turn on the coffee maker, or whatever it is. So I think we've seen that here at Brannigan over the last few years, that when we have had the opportunity to have more than one intern, each of the interns is more successful because they kind of had that collaboration, whether it's working on specific projects together or just being at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a class that we had to do for during or before an internship. That sounds like it would be super beneficial. I guess I've just prepared by talking to other people who are kind of in the same boat, which I guess is what you guys did in the class, but in more of a casual setting, and just talking about how we're getting ready, and from that you can kind of be maybe I should do something like that too. One example is I was talking to a girl in one of my communication design classes, and she was looking for her first graphic design internship, and she's more involved in the arts, I guess you could say, and is more in touch with what those types of fields are looking for. Since she goes to Maya, they kind of are on top of that. But she said something about having a digital portfolio and having a reel of animated artwork that she's done, and I was like, oh wow, I never thought of that. I didn't have too much animated art at that point in time, but she said she played it for the person who was interviewing her, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen anybody do something like this. So I guess just always keeping in mind doing stuff that's out of the box, that's not what people are thinking about doing, is something that could be super beneficial and that can score you an internship that maybe you thought was out of your reach or something.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many different tips online on how to go about internship interviews and just when you're there too, how to succeed. And I think I agree with all of you that talking to other people is so beneficial because it then goes back to the culture that you're currently in and everything. And it's directed to your industry as well. So you guys both, or all three of you, I guess, kind of touched on the paid versus unpaid internship, but do you believe in the unpaid internship? Do you think there are benefits? Why or why not?
My only unpaid internship was in DC, and the previous internships I had never really paid well anyways, because they were just like student worker pay. So I guess, if you are more interested in doing an internship for the experience rather than like, using that pay to pay rent or whatever, if that's not your main source of income, like unpaid internships can be just as beneficial. I have some friends who, this is a bad example, but they're like not putting in as much effort because it's unpaid, which I just don't really see the purpose in that. But I know that's kind of a thought process that some people have, like, these people aren't paying me, why should I give them my time? But like, that's not a great work ethic. If you have a good work ethic, no matter if you're paid or not, you should give it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So, paid is nice, but like, if it's something you really want to do and they're not paying, but you really have a passion for it, I think go for it. It'll be worth it for sure.
Yeah, and I think it depends, I guess, on the internship and maybe where you are in your career, whether you're just starting. I think it's always like good experience usually. I do think sometimes unpaid internships can put others at like a disadvantage. If maybe you can't afford to do an unpaid internship, then those who can afford to do it sometimes get a leg up. But again, that always just depends on the effort you put into everything that you do. And like you were saying, that you should always give 100%, which I agree. Mm-hmm. And it just depends, I guess, on the field also, because I know from my experience, a lot of internships in the English department were unpaid just because that's just the field that it is, whereas in communications, it's more likely to have paid internships. So again, it kind of just depends on your situation and your point in time when you're accepting the internship.
I agree with the things that you both said. I think it depends on how much you want that experience. Is the experience more valuable than the paycheck? And you have to determine that. Obviously, everybody's situation is different. I know when I had my TV radio internship, it was unpaid. I did get credit for it, which was great, but I remember I worked before my internship hours, I worked after my internship hours, I had 2 different jobs. And so, I made it work, even though it was kind of a crazy summer, but that experience at the time for what I was majoring in, I felt like that was the best internship that, opportunity I could have. And it really helped me determine the path that I wanted to go down.
So have any of you guys had some internship experiences that maybe were memorable in your mind? I know, Janet, you're a little bit, further away, but I feel like that makes it even more...
I'm not insulted in any way.
I'm not trying to insult you. You're not old. I'm just saying you're not currently in an internship. Maybe we edit this out.
So what was the question?
Anyways, so are there any are there any internship experiences that are memorable, that stick out in your mind, good or bad?
I think I generally look at my experiences as valuable, and glad that I had the opportunity to have both of them. There was no mishap or anything that went really wrong.
That's good.
Yeah, I think even with my internship where I was unpaid, it was a good experience for me to kind of get my foot in the door and have something besides school and besides my organizations to be working on. So I think that was really beneficial, and in that internship I did do a few events, so I think that helped too, and overall it helped with my communications, which is my major, so all good things there.
Yeah, I can't really say I've had a bad experience. One internship I had, they had not a lot of work for me to do, so that was kind of not super ideal, but it was still a good experience. It was kind of a different field than I would normally go after, I guess. It was at more athletic focus and athletic marketing, so not exactly what I'm super interested in, but it was still beneficial to kind of experience a different sort of marketing communications viewpoint.
Yeah, I think we've seen that before too, where people come in and they think they're interested in, this field in particular, the work that we do, and then over time, it helps them decide when they go back to school, what they want to focus on, or if this is the avenue they want to go down, or if they're more suited to something else. I think it's a good way for you to figure out without a lot of investment, where you want your career to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like kind of how I looked at doing internships, is just to get a sense of what I wanted to do or what I didn't want to do, even so that I would know in the future when it's maybe a little bit more high stakes after graduating college, that this is something that I'd want to pursue seriously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we see a lot of college graduates who are taking an internship after graduation, still to do that, and also just to have a job of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
but using it as a stepping stone, whether they can take an internship to get into an organization they're interested in, or just be employed or keep getting experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really rare to find someone who's applying for a job that doesn't have any internships on their resume. You're definitely going to go to the bottom of the pile if you don't have related internship experience. Like if you're just coming out of college day one and you have no internships on your resume, that is not in your favor, because everybody else out there is going to have one or more internships that they can then put under like more professional experience, and that gives them a leg up in the job search for sure.
Okay, so as I was saying beforehand, there are so many tips on how to prepare for interviews and stuff for internships. So, as we've done on previous episodes, I found an interesting article that gives kind of like the top internship interviewing tips. And I want to go around and see if you guys agree with them, if you've done them, or, yes or no, kind of like a this or that, but a little bit different. So the first one is make a good first impression.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
think that's-
important.
Yeah.
For example, dressing professionally, being prepared. You don't have to know everything about an organization, but if you can show that you've at least checked out their website, or have some kind of information about the company that you're trying to get a job with, I think is important. And then knowing what their office culture is like. Even if you don't know that, it's better to, I would say, overdress for an internship interview rather than just assume that casual workplace is what everybody's doing, because it certainly depends on the field, but you won't get a strike against you if you're overdressed, but you will if you're underdressed.
I think that's good advice. Emphasize your skills and accomplishments.
I mean, I
That's so
feel
broad.
like you shouldn't go in there bragging about
Right,
anything
yeah.
at all, but making it known is definitely something you want to do, and they have your resume, which has all your accomplishments and stuff like
Mhm.
that on it, so
Yeah, and if you take it further and say like how you applied those skills,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that's kind of the key.
Mhm.
Instead of just saying like this is what I'm good at, it's like proving that you are.
Mm-hmm. I think you should definitely have that information in your back pocket if they ask you a question about, something on your resume or past work experience or something like that. You should be prepared to handle that question. And if you have answers kind of at the ready, then you can link not only skills but accomplishments in a real natural way.
Provide the interviewer with examples of your skills. I guess you guys kind of just talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a good one. Understand the question before answering.
Yeah, I think that's important. I had a professor who would say like if you don't totally understand the question or you need some time to think, like take a sip of water to buy you time. And I don't know if that would maybe work with everybody, because then it might be like an awkward like chugging water while you're trying to think of like an answer. But yeah, I think like you should definitely maybe go into it with an idea of what they're trying to say, just so you don't completely like ramble like I am now. But
And like asking further clarity
Yeah,
is
like
never a bad
clarification.
thing either.
mm-hmm.
I think something that's off-putting, it's a good idea if you don't understand the question or you want them to rephrase it, or you can repeat it back to them, like, just for more information. But it's definitely a mistake to talk too much in any kind of interview, internship interview or whatever, because if you find that you're doing like 90% of the talking, then you're probably not going to get hired at that company. It has to be, a little more equal. You're trying to find information out about the company and sell yourself, but they're also, want to give you some information too. So make sure you don't dominate the conversation.
Follow the interviewer's lead.
Yeah, I think that's good. Some interviews are really straight-laced and, very businesslike, and you can tell if someone's a little more relaxed and they're joking around. You can pick up on that. It's a fine line. You don't want to go too far. But they say even in when you're applying for a job in your cover letter, if the tone of the the job posting is a little more relaxed or fun, don't be afraid to integrate that. So you have to pick up on the cues. But my caution would be err on the side of maybe being a little more conservative than going a little too far, because we've had people give us a little too much information that really is not, what you want to hear or need to know in a job interview. So just kind of balance it.
Bring samples of your work.
Yeah, I, for the first time, for this interview, brought like a hard copy of a portfolio in like a big portfolio binder thing. I felt so silly carrying it around campus and like downtown. I was like, please don't look at me. I'm so embarrassed. But after the interview, Griffin was the one who interviewed me, and he was like, thank you for bringing these samples. It was really helpful to see like hard copies. And like now I feel like I have to do that for every interview, because it was just so beneficial to have stuff and be like, see, like it actually went to print, like I did it, without being like, oh, like all my stuff gets printed. Like it's a more subtle way to be like, here's what I've done, and like you just let what you've done do the talking.
Yeah, I think you should have examples of your work. Sometimes they'll ask to see it, sometimes they won't, sometimes it's a good leave behind. So definitely come prepared with any examples that you can bring that would fit the job that you're applying for.
Close the interview with confidence.
I think confidence is always a good thing. So leaving, being courteous and saying like thank you for your time, but also carrying yourself in a way that doesn't make you seem, I don't know, like scared or nervous, even though you may be.
Yeah, definitely. Enthusiasm, positivity, confidence, those all go together. I would say don't ever ask how much something pays, whether it's an internship or, just a job on the team. That's a big turnoff. That information, either you will sometimes know it before you go in, or it'll be revealed, during the job offer itself or whatever. But it just kind of goes down a weird path if you ask about money during an interview.
And then the last one or tip they suggest is follow up the interview with a thank you note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Have you done that
Yes.
and had success?
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Janet? What do you think?
Yeah, I encourage that. I always keep an eye out for a thank you note, whether it's a thank you email or a handwritten note. Either is good, but if you don't, then it just it's kind of a faux pas that you can easily avoid.
Cool. Well, unless anyone else has anything to add on internships.
No.
No?
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the episode then. Thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to subscribe to our channels, and if you have any feedback on this episode or any thoughts on what you want to hear on future episodes, feel free to DM us on Instagram at Branding and Communications.